There we go. Hello everybody, welcome back to First Attack. I'm James Chen. We are talking about how to evaluate your moves. We've already talked about a bunch of different categories that you can use to evaluate your moves, such as range, speed, safety, priority, strength, hit confirmability, combo ability, block level, resulting opponent state, and extras, miscellaneous as you were. And I talked about the 9 different categories of normal moves, places where you would tend to use moves. And these are pokes, space controllers, whiff punishers, pressure tools, counter pokes, anti-airs, big punisher, combo moves, and fakes. So, what we are going to get into now is each of these categories one by one, and we'll talk about how rating these moves actually applies to them. So before I actually talk about how they're rated, let me just show you what these moves are. And before I do that, I've got a legend for you, basically. If you see a little bullet, black bullet like this, this is basically the strengths of the moves and how to use it. If you see an empty circle like this, I'm actually going to try to help you have ways to combat this. In fact, someone in the chat just recently mentioned something about how do I get past opponent pressure? I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So that's what those circles are. Now, for each of these moves, I'm going to rate them in every category and where you're going to find that the ratings apply for these kind of moves. So again, I already know when I play this game, as soon as I see this, I have a pretty good idea what it's useful for. I just need to test its true range, see if it's cancelable, see how safe it is, and then I already know what to do with this move. I have a generally good idea what to do with this move. So by rating the different categories, you'll get a better idea of this as well. So let's go first to pokes. What are pokes? Pokes are going to basically be the fundamental component of your Street Fighter game. Footsies begin and pretty much end with pokes. Pokes are one of the most important factors in fighting games, especially slower paced, more ground-based games like Street Fighter. So pokes are going to be very important here. What are pokes for? They're just for attacking and agitating the opponent. You are using these because you have every intention of hitting the opponent. This is used heavily in footsies. But again, when you use pokes, your intention is to hit the opponent. You are actually trying to hit them. And of course, a lot of people are going to ask right now, why would you not want to hit him? Guess what? I will have plenty of reasons. Just hang on, we will get there. So here you go. Footsies, very important. You're trying to hit the opponent. So for example, with Ryu, I'm going to see, okay, my crouching medium kick looks like a great poke. So I'm going to try to poke him, poke Cammy here. It's not that great. Okay, so I need to get a little bit closer. Oh, let's see. Oh, okay, standing light kick hits pretty far. Oh, this is a pretty decent poke. So these are the moves that you're going to be trying to hit the opponent with the most. The reason why I have Cammy here on the side is because she has some of the most tremendous pokes in the game, right? Standing medium kick could very well be the best poke in the game. Maybe there might be a few of them that are of equal or maybe better, but this is one of the obvious ones that is super good. So I will use this button when I am trying to hit my opponent, mostly because I'm trying to attack them, agitate them, basically start getting them to make mistakes. I'm trying to control what they're doing. And again, it's also used for feeling your opponent out. It's for keeping them honest. If I don't have a good ranged poke, if I don't hit this button and I'm only hitting these buttons like this, like these buttons here, you know, which don't have a lot of range, Ryu's just going to be able to walk up to me and crouching. Remember I said my crouching medium kick doesn't have great range here like this, right? But if all I'm using are these little weak buttons here, not that button, but these buttons here, if I'm only using these buttons, think about this for a second. You guys remember 2 weeks ago I talked about the Mace dude. Mace dude with the circles spinning around him from the Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past game, that you kind of picture this red circle around the character. If I'm only using these buttons here that have no range like this, basically what I'm doing is I'm shrinking my red circle. Now when I do that, now my opponent is not scared of any, like he can get to this range, and he has so many ranges where he feels safe. Like I'm good here, and if you're only using these little close range moves, I'm good here too. You know, I'm gonna beat you with all these buttons and you can't even hit me. See? So having pokes is very important because you need to keep your opponent honest with these buttons. And that's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to do much else except kind of annoy them and pester them. This is seriously like when you're going, I mean, think about it for those of you who have siblings, one of the things that you did to annoy your sibling was to keep poking them all the time, right? Like poking him in the arm, I'm poking you. It's not a lot of damage or whatever, but it's just annoying. And you have to deal with it and you have to respect it. That's what I mean by keeping them honest. Now, I talked about block level, high and low, right? It's nice to have a good long range poke like this. It's even better when I have a long range poke that the opponent must block low. It is so nice to have these low hits like this that are very good at being pokes because, again, keeping them honest. If they're able to walk back and forth like this, they can block very easily walking back and forth like this because walking back will automatically trigger this. But you're not restricting their movement enough. Like you can kind of control this space, but they're like, you know what? I'm going to get into this exact range here and then maybe I can try to do something to beat you. But the thing about it is if I start hitting low, or even with Ryu, I start like sneak up to you and then I catch you with this low sweep. This is really important because this forces the opponent to have to think about low blocking every once in a while. And while this doesn't seem like a huge thing, what it does is it restricts your motion. It restricts your movement. Again, look above. Feeling out opponent, keeping them honest. By hitting them with low attacks and forcing them to low block every once in a while, I'm limiting their back and forth movement. The first episode of First Attack, I basically said movement, movement, movement. Learn movement first, movement, movement, right? And that's exactly what low pokes is there to fight, is to fight their movement. If you force them to block like this every once in a while because they're scared of getting hit low, you've really hurt their movement. So that's why having low attacks is very important like that. And again, a lot of people who play fighting games, when they first learn fighting games, the first thing they do is hold down back. And they poke from here because down back is kind of safe because you can block almost everything from here unless they jump, which you can easily stand up and block for. If you're not moving around back and forth like this, you're playing the game wrong. Left and right are the most important things, okay? Left and right are always the most important things. If you are crouching here and staying in one place, the opponent has all the control over the distance. So what you want to do is be able to walk around. But if I throw out these low attacks all of a sudden and force you to crouch block, I'm restricting your movement. I'm keeping you honest. That gives me the control. So I talked about how some moves have movement, like this move right here, and special properties. This can actually change a lot about pokes. Pokes in general, you want to have pretty decent range, and you actually want them to be decently quick as well. But in some cases, like I've mentioned, Zangief's back heavy punch, if you charge it, it's really slow. But it gains armor, so it becomes a really, really important poke for Zangief. It's a very, very good poke. Movement is another one, for example. This move is really good in movement because from far away where Cammy thinks she's safe, and she can crouch under this move like this, right? So if she's crouch blocking, my standing heavy kick goes over her, my crouching heavy kick gets blocked, and then I get punished. So at this range, Cammy can think, you know what, I can crouch block and be safe. I'm fine. So from this range, sure enough, if I hit a button, I can't hit Cammy. But if I hit towards heavy punch, all of a sudden I move forward and I'm in range to hit her. So movement is actually super important in footsie games. So Cammy has the standing medium kick, which is a great poke, and a towards heavy kick also has movement, but doesn't reach as far as Ryu's move. So is it not as good? No, it's actually still great. Not necessarily for poking though. It's not a great poking move at this point though, even though it has moves. even though it has movement, it's not a great poking tool because it doesn't quite have the range. So let's go through here. Let's talk about how to stop pokes, okay? So let's say you fight someone who plays Cammy and has figured out this is an amazing poke, this is an amazing poke, and this is an amazing poke, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to beat this character anymore. I keep trying to hit buttons, but every time I hit buttons, she keeps beating me. You know, so like I hit this button, and then she beats me, and I don't know what to do. Let me try this crouching medium punch. She keeps kicking me in the head. How do you beat people who poke a lot? Again, distance. Distance is so important. Distance is everything. Your distance from the opponent should be your main focus of the game. If you're playing the game and you're not paying attention to how far away you are from your opponent, you're not playing the game right. Your distance from the opponent must be in mind all the time. When you fight against the Cammy, this is going to be her primary poke. So again, that mace dude example that I gave a long time ago, that scary red zone that you want to stay out of, you want to be mindful of this distance. And in fact, you may even want to practice this. Move Cammy around, move Ryu around, and then go, I'm going to stand in the exact distance that it's going to whiff. This is probably one of the hardest things to be able to do. And honestly, I'm terrible at it. What I just pulled off right there, getting Ryu to stand right there and have the kick miss, I'm actually kind of amazed at it myself. This is actually a very weak point in my own game plan, which is being mindful of these precise distances. But if you can get these precise distances, be mindful of these ranges, and basically dance in and out of the ranges to get your opponent to poke with these buttons and get him to whiff. Because the next most important thing, whiff punishing. We'll get into this in a little bit because whiff punishing, as I said, is its own category. But whiff punishing is so important in footsies. So like I said, dance in, dance out, bait them into hit a button, and then hit the recovery of their move. This is whiff punishing. Like so. Or even better yet, that, for example. This is how you beat people who have really good pokes. If their distancing is good and they poke really well, well then you need to dance into their poke range. You need to dance into that red zone, that danger zone. Again, Mace Dude example again. You need to dance into that zone just barely and dance right out, get them to whiff their move, and then immediately whiff punish them. This is how you beat poking, okay? So this is fundamental, instrumental part of footsies, is whiff punishing and poking. These are, in fact, two of the most fundamental parts of using buttons in footsies. So now that we've talked about pokes, let's take a look at the 10 categories that I've talked about. And as I said, I'm going to rate these. If you guys look back here, I said that basically 5 stars means that this pretty much, if you don't have this, you should not be using this move for this category, okay? So if you don't have 5 stars in this category, you should not be using this for a poke, right? Okay. So important factor, this is something that's very important. 3, I've rated as kind of like, this can be cool to have, and in fact you should have it, but it's really dependent on the situation. Examples later on will kind of indicate what this means. 2 means it's kind of neat if it has this, and it makes it a little bit better than the standard, but it's not necessary. And 1 star basically means you don't need this factor at all. So let's talk about pokes here. If you notice one thing about pokes I've immediately mentioned right now is I have no 5-star categories. I have 2 4-star categories, which is range and speed, because that's the 2 main things that are going to be vital to your pokes. So for Cammy, for example, this move has so much range. One of the furthest range normals in the game right here is the standing medium kick. Such a great range on this button here. But if you look at it, it's not the fastest move compared to, say, this button here. This move is super fast, right? The thing about it is with pokes, they're very range dependent, and a lot of times moves that are much slower, like a Zangief Charge Fierce, can be made up for by having better range. And moves with shorter range can be made up with by having a faster speed. So even though I said there's a close-up game and a far game, this can still count as footsies. And this is where Cammy's standing light kick even though it doesn't have as good of a range, is still such an amazing footsies tool. Because at this range, remember I said that what are footsies for? What are pokes for? Keeping them honest and agitating the opponent. Look, there is nothing more annoying than dealing with this. So this is a good poke. This can be a good poke. But then when you're at this range, this becomes your button of choice. And then at this range, having a low attack like this from Cammy, very good to have. So speed and range are kind of tied. They both should be 5, but because you can sacrifice one for the other, I've given them both a 4. Safety is nice because the faster a button recovers, like so, like this, like you see this move. You see how hard this is to whiff punish here? Look at this. I can barely whiff punish. So that makes this a really good poke move. Because even if I whiff, even if I don't hit the opponent, again, I said poke's main goal is to hit the opponent. Your goal is you're trying to literally touch them, whether they get hit or blocked. But even if I whiff this move, I'm relatively safe. It's really, really hard to whiff. Dude, okay, there we go. I finally whiff punished it. But safety is kind of important. It's definitely nice to have. But again, in a lot of situations, for example, like this move right here, it's a decent poke. And it's really slow, so it's easy to punish, but it can be a very useful poke. So I put it as a 3 because while safety is a nice quality to have, if it's not completely safe, don't dismiss it. Cammy Low Fierce is another example. Not very safe at all. Very whiff punishable because it's a very laggy move. But again, because of its relative range, it's a very nice tool to have. Priority, not so much important because priority is kind of how two attacking moves interact with each other. Because pokes are designed to hit the opponent, you're not worried about priority. You just want to hit them. So you shouldn't even have to be worrying about which move is going to beat which move like this. You know, ooh, wow, check that out. Dang. Okay, Cammy's standing medium punches. Sick priority. Okay, I need to use this move button more in footsies. Okay, but in any case, you're not so much worried about priority. If you have priority on a move that is also a poke, good on you, you are super lucky. And, you know, maybe Ryu standing medium kick is a good example of this because if Cammy's trying to poke around with this button, you can poke with this and have priority. So Ryu's might be a good example, not super important. Strength, again, not important. You're not looking to do damage on pokes. You're just looking to annoy people. For those of you used to Street Fighter 4, if you guys remember, Abel's standing light kick was very much like this. One of the best pokes in the game, okay? A very good footsie tool. And again, not a strong move, but having it really made a difference for Abel. Hit confirmability and combo ability, not important. Your goal here at this range is not to combo them. And yeah, you're saying, well, you know what? Cammy can do low forward drill, which is super good. Yeah, but the thing about it is, if I low block and then I do Cammy low forward drill, I don't know if I can do this with two hands like this. There you go, like that. And the opponent happens to block it, I'm dead, right? They're gonna kill me. So I don't want to just run around doing woo in the drill all day on a whim's notice because if the opponent just happens to block it, I'm dead. So combo ability, again, not super important. Poking is just agitation. You just want to hit little buttons here. And it's all basically just to get your opponent off guard, to focus on this ground game here so that you can sneak in other ways. Again, as I mentioned, keeping them honest, agitating the opponent. These are basically the tools that you want to use. This is the basis of your Street Fighter game. Poking like this so that they forget about your jump, so they stop thinking about your dash. They stop thinking about surprise throw moves like this. That's what pokes are for, is to occupy your opponent's mind, keep them honest, agitate them so they don't see what you're really planning to do. It's a way to get yourself in so that you can get close and then start landing all your damage and all your frame traps. So again, combo ability is not important. Block level, as I said, it's nice to have moves that hit low like this, and although I did say it's kind of important to have these, some characters might not do this a lot. Like Cammy, you may just end up just hitting this all day and barely do a lot of low forwards. And as I said with Ryu here, his low forward doesn't reach super far, so you might actually be poking with this button a lot more than a lot of lows. So it is important, but it's not crucial. In other words, if my standing medium kick doesn't hit low, doesn't mean it's a terrible poke. Okay, so obviously it's nice to have it in your arsenal, but if it doesn't hit low, don't just say, well, this move is garbage, I can't use it as a poke. Resulting state, you don't care where they're at. You don't care if it knocks them down. You don't care if it does. Whatever it does, it doesn't matter. All you care about, okay, you don't care about their character's physical state on screen. You care about the opponent's mental state. That's what you're trying to mess with here. You're trying to mess with the actual player, not the character. So, again, you don't care if it's a knockdown or not. Poking like this is just really good. Extra properties, I keep giving the example of Zangief's back Fierce Punch, which has armor. Having moves that crush counter is a really nice extra property you have, because then you can do big ol' combos. So when you toss out a roundhouse like this and Cammy gets hit, then I'm like, look at this, I just drained over half of your life and you died, right? So having extra properties like crush counter, having the ability to low crush, like I mentioned, Chun-Li's towards roundhouse is really good. Even something like Armika, for example, her towards medium kick, you might not necessarily be trying to hit them, but it moves you forward. Her crouching medium punch moves her forward. So those moves you can kind of use at this footsie's range like this. So now they're scared to touch a button here. So now pretend this is Mika's towards medium kick, right? So I can walk around and get them annoyed by this button because I keep hitting them with this, which lets me close the gap with movement like this, and then all of a sudden I can play my close-up game. So having extra properties is nice, not exactly something that you need to have. So that's pokes. Again, first category I mentioned because probably the most important part of footsie games is having decent pokes. If you don't have a lot of good pokes, it's actually a tough life for you in footsie games. So for example, Armika is a character who does not actually have great pokes. She gets out footsied by a lot of characters, but that's because when she gets in, she just basically mauls you. You die instantaneously. So Mika as a character has been intentionally made weaker on the pokes because her close-up game is so good. So there you go.